Now, in the 18th century, this is whenever we see an uptick in asylums. So, individuals used to be institutionalized, but the beginning asylums, especially outside of the United States and in France more particularly, they were really horrific institutions. They basically just ostracized and imprisoned people from the public. So, to give a definition to asylums, they were the first institutions created for the specific purpose of housing people with psychological disorders. And so, where they would be kept was often in like windowless dungeons. They were chained to beds and they were offered little to no contact with their caregivers. So, obviously, these individuals did not receive any sort of alleviation of their mental difficulties, if anything, it either stagnated or worsened, and a lot of times probably worsened. Now, there was an individual named Felipe Pinel in the late 1700s, so we're to the 18th century at this point still, and he was a French physician. He argued for more humane treatment of the mentally ill. He suggested, hey, maybe we should, I don't know, unchain these people and maybe talk to them a little bit. And believe it or not, because of this, through as I guess you could say an earlier form of psychotherapy or talk therapy, individuals were they benefited from this, and some were able to be released from the quote unquote hospital or asylums. Now, toward the 19th century, we've got Dorothy Dix. She was a social reformer who became an advocate for individuals who were experiencing mental difficulties. She investigated the state of care for the mentally ill and poor and discovered an underfunded and unregulated system that perpetuated the abuse of the mentally ill. So she was hugely instrumental in creating the first asylums here in the United States. Now, here in the United States, they still weren't, especially, at the beginning they had good intentions, but it got to the point where it was almost like they were just testing different treatments out of the blue to see what stuck. And as a result, too, these asylums were not kept up very well. So they were usually pretty filthy. They offered little treatment, and the treatment they did offer was unethical as well as harmful to the individuals, and many caused death in these people. And so because these treatments weren't effective for obvious reasons, they were often institutionalized for decades, so many did not even receive an alleviation of their mental difficulties. So some of these treatments included submerging individuals into cold baths for long periods of time, electroshock treatment, and so what this does is it essentially produces like a generalized seizure in the individual. And so that was believed at the time to alleviate mental difficulties. But a lot of these treatments, among others, ended up killing people. So toward the 20th century, we get a little bit better in the sense of introducing psychotropics and antipsychotic medications. So in 1954, these were when they were first introduced, and they were given to individuals who were diagnosed with what's known as psychosis, because we didn't have the DSM, or the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, at this time. We didn't have the correct verbiage for schizophrenia. And we know, as we've established in Chapter 15, schizophrenia can include symptoms of psychosis, which are simply hallucinations, so seeing and hearing things that are not congruent with reality, and delusions or beliefs about the world that are incongruent with reality. And whenever these antipsychotic medications were introduced, people saw significant improvement. Now, in 1975, this is whenever we have acts that come into place that begin the process of deinstitutionalization. So this is quite simply the closing of asylums and allowing people to return to society and seek outpatient care. Now, this was not a smooth transition by any stretch. You can find the data anywhere online that shows whenever these individuals were deinstitutionalized, and we have an increase of mental health hospitals, there is an increase in homelessness as well as imprisonment, because the main thing with psychological disorders is that cause significant distress and impairment in individuals' ability to operate and function normally in society. So obviously, if you're not able to operate normally or have dysfunction to your ability to work, then how are you supposed to create an income for yourself, have a fruitful life where you're able to take care of yourself and even a family? So that's why we see an increase in homelessness as well as imprisonment as a result of this deinstitutionalization. And mental health hospitals today, they are getting better for sure. But the thing is they're focused on short-term treatment, and individuals are not there as long as they should be. And this is due to a variety of factors, but especially insurance. Insurance is a thing, and the cost for mental health treatment is exponential. So if we can get to the point to where mental health treatment is affordable, I think that will be advantageous for everybody. It shouldn't be just exclusive to individuals who have the financial means to seek treatment. Now, there are two forms of mental health treatment as far as how people get to a psychiatric hospital or a mental health hospital. A good portion of people have to go against their will or due to court order. And this is what's known as involuntary treatment. So therapy is not the individual's choice. So this includes weekly counseling sessions, or short-term stay in a mental health hospital. Next is voluntary treatment, where an individual does actually choose to obtain relief from their symptoms of mental difficulties. I guess before I start with the types of treatment, if you are struggling with mental difficulties, the very first step is to seek advice from your primary care physician or whoever you seek for primary care. They will refer you to a counselor in the area or an organization that will set you up with a counselor.